Welcome back to Krusty Car News, and today we've got 5 new hot topics of news. We want to get down to the bottom of it. Ford, are they going out of business? They're taking some huge risks. We're going to talk about that. Toyota, more problems. Sadly, a whole new technicality, and they're blowing gearboxes. As well, we want to talk about the feds and how they're dropping interest rates. Yes, finally since the pandemic. We've also want to talk and discuss the latest on Stellantis and how they're in crisis mode. And lastly, we're going to touch on the subject of the car market and how it's crashing, both new and used. Yes, prices are going down. Let's take this from the top, everybody. Firstly, let's talk about Ford and how they may in fact be going out of business. With the stocks dropping 21%, as well as the back end of 2024 promises to be an uphill battle for many manufacturers, including Ford. With serious quality control issues, with overprices on many of their vehicles, and the fact that the electrified market is being recognized as not necessarily the go-to, and Ford is retracting on some of the output of those vehicles. Unfortunately, the sale of each and every one of these electric vehicles, like the Ford F-150 Lightning, as we notice right here, is a Lariat version, or the Mustang Mach-E, has been showing Ford lose money on the sale of every one of these vehicles. And Ford sales have been declining year over year on a lot of their full-size trucks, like this brand new, fully deckled, rebadged, brand new generation model of the F-150, like we're looking at right here. Here is a brand new, this is a 2024 F-350 4x4 crew cab, and wow. Holy, $116,719. I think we've actually hit the tipping point where these manufacturers see that people's backs are broken. You can literally hear the cracking right before me. This is an absolute unfortunate time in history in the automotive industry, where the buyers are now fronting the cash, paying for these full-size ICE vehicles to fund the electric vehicle market. That's why all of these prices are rising in 2025, squeaking in these small increases. A lot of them are outside of the realm of cost of living increases. The inflationary rate's only 2-3%, and yet a lot of these prices are going up 7, 8, 10, 15%. How can you possibly justify it on an old existing model? Ford are in some serious struggles, and it's not sure how much longer they can survive. Secondly, Toyota. We heard they've had a lot of issues. First it was their 3.4 turbo V6s. Then it was some 4-cylinder issues. Then they had Tacoma problems with suspensions and hub issues. Then we heard about the GR Corolla and turbo engines blowing there. We also heard about the scandal with the crash testing. And now, would you believe it? Their new 8-speed automatic gearbox is under fire. Have you heard the latest by the Toyota Tacoma with their 8-speed automatic transmission? Now, sadly, this new revamp has created a whole new generation of issues, spitting out check engine lights. Why? Because of drivability, rough shifting, no shifting, all kinds of problems, because we're looking here and they're saying there's 5 engine codes because of a torque converter clutch actuator that's stuck in the off position. On top of that, they're saying basically the pressure control solenoid seems to be the culprit. And if you're saying, okay, well, what sort of engine codes? Well, Toyota's not going to own up and replace all these transmissions just because. They're saying if you sustain certain codes, for example, the P07407F, the P0795571, the P08BA71, the P271371, the P280771, and the P281671 seem to be the inclusive fault codes related to this torque converter issue. But when things start to fail, they get expensive and they get complicated to troubleshoot. And so now we're starting to see Toyota going down this path that, I hate to say this, I hate to even throw them in the same word as the S word, Stellantis. The next in line, you knew it was coming, the feds. In fact, we've been waiting this whole last 3 years for them to adjust the interest rates. Yes, interest rates have been holding for several years since the pandemic, and finally, the feds have made a decision and dropped 2 basis points. And now we're about to get into a world and a car market that many buyers have been waiting for, and we're about to hit a car market where buyers can affordably buy their next new car. The Fed and the committee have now gained the confidence that the inflation rate is more sustainable, heading and holding at 2%, which is the target. And this is the lowest number we've seen now since early pandemic.
Inflation has eased substantially from a peak of 7% to an estimated 2.2% as of August.
The initial projection was looking more like 25 basis points, but they've actually doubled down and created 50 basis point reduction on the Federal Reserve numbers. And now we're starting to see more incentive for customers to step in and finally pull the trigger on their next new purchase. So yes, in fact, they're making it more affordable to borrow money from the bank or from borrowers if you're thinking about upgrading your mortgage, possibly spending more on your credit cards, or definitely even buying a car. There's no doubt this may be, in fact, a better time than it ever has been in the last 3 or 4 years. We still see high prices. It is going for a massive sticker of $124,000 for $66,000, $71,000 there too. Oh no. $47,000 for this little unit. We've seen increased prices in brand new vehicles. Cars, trucks, SUVs have gone through the roof in the last 3 or 4 years. And sadly, we're still seeing trucks that are going for $70,000, $80,000, $90,000. Jeeps that are going for 80 grand, $90,000, and even base cars going for $40,000, $50,000 still keeps a lot of people out of the market. And ultimately what customers and buyers are looking for is more relaxation on the core MSRP. A lot of dealers are still putting out highly priced vehicles with high profit margins. We're seeing Raptors start at $100,000 going up to north of 200 grand. We've also seen the Shelby F-150 also go almost $190,000, and the F-150 Lightning is getting a bump. Even though it's not selling, it's getting an increase for 2025. And next we have Stellantis. More troubles brewing. With the fights and the battles and the mudslinging with UAW strike workers, of course the lead of UAW, and all of the individual dealerships and the franchisees claiming that they're getting isolated, that Stellantis is ignoring the North American market. The UAW is attacking the CEO of Stellantis, and the blame game is coming on strong as sales are in the tank for Stellantis from Dodge, Ram, Jeep, Chrysler products, and Stellantis just struggles to stay afloat. What's in store? With sales in the tank, we've seen a drop by half of sales in the first quarter of 2024. They're in survival mode. They've now also got 1.5 million Rams recalled for some software glitch for a safety-related issue. They've also been on the verge of closing plants. Their new Fiat 500e is put on hold because they're not selling, and they're begging for forgiveness from the European Union to progress with the development, enhancement, and push for prioritization of the full electric vehicle mandate by 2035, since they have all of their stokes in the fire. Plants are closing. We heard previously that the Wrangler as well as the Jeep Grand Cherokee, 2 of their legendary models, were on hold and production stopped for a period of time. But to be honest, it feels like they're managing more stock prices than managing what the affordability crisis has to offer. A lot of people are struggling to buy cars these days. A lot of people are struggling to buy houses. Have you heard the housing crisis? Have you heard about the food crisis? There's people that literally can't afford to live, let alone drive an expensive pickup truck like this beautiful Ram right here. The latest 1.2 million Rams from 2019, 21, 22, 23, and 24s are being recalled for a software glitch. The sad reality, the Hornet is the worst selling vehicle in the entire industry and has a market day supply of about 428 days. They've only sold about 1,536 units in the past month and a half. The worst part is UAW workers, the actual people that build these vehicles with their sweat and tears, are unfortunately people getting very irate. They're allegedly being mistreated, they're being shortchanged, and as well, there's word allegedly that Stellantis had planned to move the Dodge Durango offshore and eliminate the American workers from getting their hands on that product. Products are not selling, day supply is rising, and the disputes internally are on the rise. And next story, we want to talk about the car market and how it's crashing. What's changing? I'm a numbers guy and I want to share some of the numbers and the facts. Yes, used cars and new car prices have taken a nosedive in recent months, with consumers at the end of their rope trying to pay for food, housing, as well as the general cost of living, with consumer debt, credit cards, as well as we can't forget about student loans. People are finding themselves very, very difficult to spend any kind of money. But now a lot of these manufacturers are starting to realize, they're starting to see the writing on the wall that customers don't have the money. As a matter of fact, I was down at a few dealerships this week. I was poking around trying to get some pricing, and I saw some really disturbing trends. A lot of the mainstream vehicles that don't get the limelight are also priced way too high for the average consumer. But guess what? There's been good news, and we're starting to see the trends starting to turn around. We're seeing lots of changes in the used car market with prices dropping off drastically. That's right, we're only about 14-19% higher than we were in 2019. That's right, we've retracted substantially from the peak that we saw back in February of 2022. We've dropped drastically since that point, and we're starting to see the writing on the wall by a lot of these car dealers, where you're walking into the dealerships and you're seeing a vast amount of salespeople, but not too many customers. There's not a lot of foot traffic. People aren't buying vehicles these days, and the dealers, the OEMs know that. And you're probably thinking, the automotive industry is one of the biggest culprits for inflation. Well, based on the Bureau of Labor Statistics in August of 2024, we pull up some really striking numbers. So it's not shocking that we've seen car insurance rise through the roof. And that's a big part of the cost of living crisis, is just affording to own and operate a lot of these vehicles. We know with the pricey parts and components, battery replacements on electric vehicles, and the high cost of just ownership in general, and the fact that there's been excessive numbers of thefts in the industry, means car insurance has gone through the roof. And in that 12-month change, we've seen a 16% increase in the inflationary rates for the month of August due to car insurance. One of the biggest changes, negative impacts on you as the consumer, that you're paying way more than you ever have for car insurance these days. Rent and housing is between 4.5% and 5%. Groceries is actually about 0.9%, surprisingly enough. And transportation and brand new vehicles are actually retracted 1 and 1.2% respectively. Edmunds is also reporting that 3 out of 4 customers are actually waiting around for interest rates to drop down to between 0 and 5%. They want that lower single-digit number. Whereas 6 out of 10 people have actually purchased cars this or last year at the much higher rates of 6 to 12%. Sadly enough, people have just dug down deep and spent their hard-earned dollars and now are rooked in, and a lot of it are negative equity. But the reality is, when we look at the numbers, yes, new car prices are down. A lot of it has to do with incentives as well as used car prices, because with the pressure from new car sales going down, pushing prices down, naturally that has a major impact on the slightly used and late model used vehicles. The older used vehicles as well start to take a little bit of a hit as the natural spillover occurs. And with all of that said, you want to see last week's news? Check it out right there. And right there, you're going to love that storyline. Everybody is really loving it. So hope to see each and every one in the next one. We'll see you real soon. Bye-bye.